Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael, and we're excited you joined us for this adventure.
So today's guest, I'm really excited for, because it was so cool to finally meet him in person after just seeing him on Zoom and on the internet everywhere. So thank you so much for joining us, Alexander the Great Felice.
Thank you. That was an intro. I like the hype. Very excited to be here. It was super fantastic to meet you guys recently and in person. And yeah, very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Alex. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, and it is always a pleasure because when we were on your podcast with Dave or Dave's podcast, I don't know who would be more offended on which way I said that, but
I'm never offended and he's always offended. So we'll call it my show.
But the coolest part though was that you were like, hey, wait a second, like I'm not ready for the show to end. Then I knew. I was like, sweet, we have somebody on our level. Like I can do more of this. So again, thank you for being here. We're really excited for this today.
Yeah, I love chatting with people, and you guys have just so much energy. Obviously, it's infinite energy. And, we have a lot in common, so it's just fun to chat. And I care less about the 1 hour mark and more about the organic, conversations.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. Speaking of organic conversations, would you mind sharing with our listeners, our adventurous family, a little bit more about your background, like why you started investing in real estate?
Yeah. So it's always so hard to do now at 38. It's so hard to do. How did I get here in 20 minutes or 5 minutes? But basically the story is I was a career knucklehead till about 31, broke, living week to week, the American dream, a lot of consumerism, not a lot of arrogance, a lot of entitlement, not a lot of talent. And then, turned my life around, got it together, started practicing radical responsibility, decided I hated my job, decided I hated my boss, had to get out. And I was like, okay, straight up, this is what happened. I said, I need to get out of this life. I need to get out of the rat race, but I don't really want to work that hard. So I need something that's going to be passive. And I mean, really passive. I don't want a business. I don't want a brick and mortar. Like I don't want employees. And I also don't want to invest in equities as much because I needed cash flow. So like, not only did I not want to, I wanted to build money, but I wanted to be cash flow. And so like the only thing in American life that you can, and I didn't have any money either. I was broke. So the only thing in American life that you can like basically invest in fairly quickly and start cash flowing right away is rental real estate. And so it's like 2014. So the real estate foreclosure boom is going on. And I live in a small town outside of Fort Bragg, outside of a military base. So prices are cheap. And I saved up cash for a few years. And I started learning real estate. So I saved up cash and around 2014, I get into a foreclosure for like 50 grand.
Mm-hmm.
I put $3,000 down. It was like 18 months later, I appraised it. It was like 120. And I was like, okay, real estate is easy. I'm going to do this forever. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do 10 of these. And then like life is set. Didn't work out that way because prices came back up.
Yeah.
But along the way, I ended up buying a bunch of those. And then I got into 2019, I got into multifamily. And then, most recently, as you know, I joined Klein Capital, which is basically another big commercial investment team of guys that I've known for a while. And we're doing commercial real estate, RV parks. But it's interesting how it grows because I started out single family and now I kind of have a job, which is what I wanted to avoid in the first place.
That's awesome. I have two questions. First question, do you still have any of the single families? Second question, when did you start the Pink Doors?
Dude, so I love this. So I sold one single family. I bought a condo, my first house ever that I lived in 2010. I didn't know anything about real estate. All I knew was buying is better than renting, which as anybody who has a sophisticated understanding of real estate knows that's not always true, though it's often true. And so I just bought a retail house in 2010 at the bottom of the market. And then in 2021, 11 years later, after the meteoric rise in real estate, I sold it for it made like a $5,000 profit. It did not go up in value and it did not cash flow. It was like,
my brain
I'm the only idiot
that fast enough.
Yeah. I'm the only idiot who bought at the bottom of the market and didn't make any money. Like how did, so, and that's how I know real estate works actually, because I'm like, you can make mistakes and they're forgiving. You just have to, if you play the game a lot, you'll make some money. The Pink Doors started in 2020. I moved away from Las Vegas and I moved to Fayetteville and I was like, man, I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to decide what I want to wear every day. I just wanted to wear a t-shirt and jeans. And I was going to go to the store. I was going to buy all the same t-shirt and all the same jeans, just be done with it. But I'm too flamboyant for that. I'm too exciting for that. So I went on Amazon and I just bought these bright pink t-shirts. And turns out bright pink, hot pink men's t-shirts in large are on sale always. I don't know why. And so I just started wearing these every day, and people knew me as like this guy that does this pink thing. And I was like, I just wanted something I could brand easily. And it turned out to be way better than I had ever expected. And then when I did the flip houses, I was like, how can I make this part of my branding? And so I painted the door bright pink. And everybody in my social circle was like, do not do that. That's a stupid idea. That's never going to sell. I mean, it's a neat idea, but it's not going to sell. And that's what matters. And, you know, part of it is the market's up. So they all sold very quickly. And it became like a thing.
Did people keep the pink doors?
They all have the pink doors. I travel by them periodically. And now we're converting all the houses to Airbnbs, and we're going to call it Pink Door Homes. Actually.
I love it.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That's cool, actually.
Yeah.
I like how that all worked out. You know,
Yeah.
'cause even from an Airbnb point of view, like you literally have already created an experience with a photo online.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, you can say like, you know, the one with the pink door. Because there's not, and we paint them like, you know, it's very rarely. I have one where it's like a soft baby pink, but no, we're going to
Like
go with
neon pink.
ridiculous is kind of the approach that I like to take.
I love that. I love that. And so throughout this process as well, Alex, like when you're accumulating these single family homes at the very beginning, you also started started blogging about it like on your website, right?
Yeah, broke is a choice. So in 2017, this thing started working, right? I went from broke to saving a little bit of money to investing to making money investing. And then I go to Las Vegas and I started buying them long distance.
I thought
it was
you were
going well.
going to gamble, and I'm like, don't do that.
I didn't gamble once while I lived in Las Vegas for 2.5 years, not more.
Wow.
Not into it. I'm a very risk averse, very conservative investor. Actually, there's a lot of peers I have that make a lot more money than me because I'm too risk averse in this point in the market cycle, but that's another story. So, but this real estate thing is working out. And I remember going, well, I was broke for 31 years because one, largely because I didn't take any self-responsibility for myself. And two, this all seemed really scary investing. If you're new to it, it seems scary and there's a lot to learn, but it's not complicated. It's simple. It really is simple. It's not even that I'm well known for saying real estate is easy, and it kind of is easy, right? It's an effort or it's a practice of effort, not brain power. It doesn't take that much. It takes a lot of brute force more than it takes and systems more than it takes, you know, mental capacity. So I learned these things and I was like, this is not simple. This is not complicated. You just have to kind of go up and do it. And I learned it all on, you know, you guys make a podcast, like podcasts and blogs. And I learned all this stuff for free. And so I turned around and I said, man, this changed my life. I can change somebody else's life if I just write my story as I do it. I don't sell a course. I don't have a coaching program. I don't have an education platform. I just tell, like, here's exactly what I did and why. Here's where all the risk is. Here's how I financed it. Here's what I paid. Here's what the rehab is. Here's what rents. Here's what makes money. Like, everything's very thorough. And it's just like, dude, this is what I did. And maybe it changed. This all changed my life. Maybe it can change yours. And that's been a very fulfilling thing for me.
That's really cool. And I don't know if you still do it or not, but I remember you used to have like a calendar link on your website too. It's like, hey, let's have a chat, you know, like, yeah, like a calendar link is basically like sign up on like Friday nights or something like that. And you just chat with anybody who wanted to sign up and have a chat.
Yeah. So my website doesn't get nearly the hits that it used to. I don't spend as much time on it as I used to, although I'm trying to get back into it. But I have a Calendly link right on my website, whereas people are selling courses and coaching. And I respect that sort of, but I always thought about it and I was like, dude, I have enough time to give somebody 30 minutes and just I like meeting people. And it turns out that I met a lot of my partners. A lot of my partners ended up coming from those Zoom chats just by putting it up there and saying, like, if you want some information, you can have 30 minutes of my time. And when it gets too busy or people started ghosting me, like, I turn it off because it's not a money maker. I never relied on it. It was more like, this is charity in many ways. It's charity.
Yeah.
And when it became really painful for me and people were like misusing it or it wasn't convenient for me, I just turned it off and I didn't feel any guilt. And then, like, when I can do it again, I turn it back on. And so about once or twice a week, somebody signs up and I have a chat with a stranger and I love it.
What do you think is like the best education you've gotten for real estate?
The best education I've gotten for real estate?
Whether it was a book or a person you talked to or like anything.
Two people one guy's local, but mentors. You have to be close to it. I tell people, I'm like, dude, it's like deadlifting. I'm a lifelong gym rat. You want to deadlift 600 pounds? Go hang out with the guy that deadlifts 600 pounds. Like, it'll happen. Just you go hang out with them every day and they're like, you're an idiot. If you can do this, I can do this. This is possible. Like, it's you're not anything special, right? And so if you see people, when I saw a guy in my town who I met, and he owned like 20 single family homes, and I had one at the time. And I was like, dude, I want to be you. And he's like, let's hang out a bunch. And then I saw him, and I'm like, you're not doing anything special. He's like, no. And I was like, well, what about that? I was watching him buy deals that I was too scared to buy. That's when it hit me. When I saw him buy a deal that I passed on, and now he still owns it and makes a bunch of money. I'm like, oh, I realized how much of my fear was getting in the way of what my brain was telling me was profitable investment. And so, yeah, a lot of it's just being close. So local mentors, a guy named Roderick Jackson, still a partner of mine, has probably been the just biggest, tremendous help of really getting me from, a lot of people get stuck in analysis paralysis. Yeah. Some people get stuck in like trying to find the perfect deal. That's analysis paralysis. Some people get stuck in this portion where like they're trying to get where the rubber meets the road, where they're like, I understand real estate and I do know what is profitable, but they need to like see it in real life. And that can be difficult. So Roderick did that for me. He showed me that what I thought in my head and what my underwriting on paper said would actually flesh out in real life. And that's when I ended up going off, and I told him I wanted to buy 10 properties in 10 years. I ended up getting 8 properties in 3 years, and then a 24, and then a 52 unit, all in like 5 years. So once I saw it happen, I was like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so it sounds like the fear maybe was coming from just not trusting your underwriting, or was a fear that, hey, your underwriting was maybe too conservative because you wanted to like really rely on your underwriting? Or was it the fear of like everything else you thought about could go wrong and then it just like crippled you? Or, what do you think it came from?
I'm a very conservative underwriter. I worked in risk analysis at a bank. So like I watched businesses fail left and right. So that scares me. Also, fear, dude, is because I was an underwriter, I have this saying, never fear risk, always manage it. It's risk. Like you can kind of calculate it on paper. And so for me, the fear was really just emotional. It was just me being a big baby, which look, it happens to everybody. So like if you have that problem, like you should, I'm not discounting it. I'm just saying it's not rational. My underwriting was clean. There is definitely always a fear of what will the market do. But I think as you do this more often, especially if you have healthy reserves, goodness, if you have healthy reserves, dude, this business is very forgiving. It's when you write deals that are tight, you have no reserves, and then the market turns, that's when you get in trouble. But if you have healthy reserves, like you can pretty much weather storms. And so this is a very forgiving business. And I knew that it was just emotional.
And it's crazy how we have an initial thought, right? Like, oh, I can do this. And then somehow we convince ourselves out of it over and over and over for some things. It's just something I think about often, how our even emotions will then change our ideas and thoughts. And we don't really recognize that's happening all the time.
Yeah, I think there's a portion of that is maybe when you look at something in the world and you're like, I can do that. And then you start to do it and you're like, oh, this is harder than I thought because now I understand it a little better. And then you kind of do it and you get a little okay at it. And then, but now you're paying more attention to it. And so you realize like what the talent level, like what the possibilities really are. So again, maybe I can buy a house. That's me. Maybe I can buy a house. Maybe I can buy an investment property. Maybe I could possibly buy an investment property. Could I be good enough to do so? And then you go off and you get one and you're like, oh yeah, I can do that. So then you're like, I go off and I get one. And then you're like, oh, actually I can get a few of these, right? I get a couple of these, handful. But then you realize there's people like Grant Cardone and Joe Fairless and people buying billions, right? And so then you kind of go back on yourself. So you get a little good at something, you test the waters, you find out you can do it. You find out it's a little bit harder. Then you get good at it again. But then you realize just how much there is. And then you go back to that initial feeling where you're like, well, how good actually am I?
Yeah.
Sorry, you go.
I was just going to quickly wrap up this thing about fear, unless you had something else. But you mentioned you started hanging out with Roderick and then like he helped you get over these initial fears. So was that like was that the key driver that really helped you get over the fear that you had? Or was there something else? Was it more education or what?
I think education is important, but I look at real estate again, it's a fixed cost business model, right? You know what rents are going to be before you buy a property, basically. You know what expenses are going to be before you buy a property. Whatever the difference is profitability. I mean, that's basically it. The costs don't change per month. It's not like you have a variable cost business model with employees and all these things. So it's a really simple business. So I just don't think education, there's a base level of it that you need. Mm-hmm. 6 months of education on real estate and like you kind of got it. The rest of it is experience. So I think seeing people do it, boots on the ground, really, really tremendously turned the corner for me. And that's sort of still now how it goes. When I went to join Climb, or when I worked with them on the deal in here in Fable, we partnered up on a deal before I joined the company. We worked on a deal that I knew would make money. I was just afraid of it. And maybe that's just who I am, right? Maybe I'm I'm just, because I'm so conservative, maybe I'm unwilling to take certain risks by myself. It is what it is. But once I tagged them in and they were like, yeah, we know how to do this. We've done this before, and they had their hands on it. It just seemed so much more possible. So I don't know if I'm speaking in universal or I'm just speaking for myself. But for me, seeing somebody do it, I've learned, I've been good at a few things in my life. Real estate, I'm pretty good at. Cameras, I'm pretty good at. Powerlifting, I was pretty good at. And all of it, I got good at when I saw somebody else do it. And I was like, okay, that's possible. Now I know how to do it. I just got to do what you did. So I think for me, that's a tremendous way, not theoretical education, but like just watching somebody do it. Then maybe it's just ego. I'm like, okay, I watched you do it and you're just you. So
what gets you the most excited about real estate?
Right now it's super popular and I am a deeply, deeply, deeply contrarian person. I'm more excited when the air cools and it's not so popular that I can go in, then I'll be more excited about it. Right now, when it's hyped and mania, I'm a little bit contrarian about it. Real estate is the only thing, or one of the very few things that I think is not going to be replaced by an app. Roofs are not going to be replaced by technology. So there's a level of, I don't know if you're familiar with the term Lindy. There's a level of Lindy in it. It's been around for a long time. It's going to be around for a long time. Roofs are not going to be made obsolete by technology. So I'm excited about that. There's more and more people on the planet, so they're going to need more roofs. I don't know how broad this question, I don't know how broad of an answer you wanted. We're buying in the Southeast, and like the world is the United States is there's a lot of migration to the Southeast. So I'm very excited about that. And, with real estate, there's no ceiling on scalability. So you can really, I'm a big picture, big thinker, big visionary type of guy. So there's really no ceiling on what you can do as long as you point your ambitions towards it. And then, there's no shortage of other people's money. So you can really if you can find deals and you can build a system that really operates deals well and underwrites operates deals well, you can fund it. So the ceiling is really the limit on this, non-obsolete tech. So it's, assets. So it's really interesting. And then right now with inflation, I mean, I wish that I could buy more faster because I think the inflationary period is going to be difficult, very, very, very difficult period for Americans. But I think, in a vacuum, real estate is going to do well. Yeah.
Right. Even people this year saying they wish they bought more last year. It's like, I just hear it over and over and over. I don't ever really hear people saying I bought too much. Maybe those people are in jail though. But anyways.
It's never the real estate that gets you in trouble. It's the debt. It's the debt that gets you in trouble. Also, nobody ever says everybody's a genius in an up market. So everybody's saying right now, I wish I bought more, but I don't know what they'll be saying in a few years. So like I said, I think there's definitely some people are underappreciating the inflationary risk in many ways, but I do think that the asset prices themselves are going to go up. So depending on how you buy it and, what your portfolio reserves and, what your tenants can bear and rents might go up. Rents might actually come down if cost of living comes up. So depending on what those things look like, but overall, there's a lot of positive things to look for in real estate as a vacuum,
absolutely
the assets.
Agreed. And with your transition now to climb capital, in RV parks, what makes you so excited about RV parks? We actually haven't had anybody talk about RV parks on the show yet. So listeners are, don't know much about them.
Dude,
can you elaborate a little bit?
RV
Look at that.
parks.
You're like, I am ready.
Yeah. I love that you said that because I want us to be known as, I'm pretty sure we are maybe one of the first to transition, but I'll tell you what, dude, it is coming. It is coming and we are ahead of it. And if you want to invest in RV parks, our Climb Capital is going to be the premier. We are the first to market with this syndication model. We already own 6 of them. RV parks are what self-storage was 12 years ago. It's highly fragmented, right? The big money hasn't moved in yet. The market is super growing and you can kind of do this thing where you buy this old mom and pop C-class asset and own just the land, the pads. And then what we're doing is we're putting all these amenities on them and you upfit the properties so that you now attract a B-class, B-tier, A-tier RV tenant. So you're really just compressing this cap rate. You're pumping up the NOI real hard because you can then rent them Wi-Fi and firewood and propane and you can rent out. We're putting clubhouses and pools and man-made lakes. And so it's a tremendous opportunity and nobody's doing it yet. So, and the RV market is booming. So we're really, really, really excited.
I was just going to ask that. How many people are buying RVs now as opposed to before COVID?
It's 2021 was a record year by a long shot, by 20%.
That's
Yeah, it's
crazy.
exploding.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, have you heard of this thing, remote work?
I don't know what that is. I live in a
yeah, it is
What does that
coming.
mean?
Remote work is going to come. And the other thing is remote work and, nomad life, van life, glamping. It's not the same business model as real estate where you have all long-term tenants. We have short-term tenants. We have people that come through 3 to 5 days. It is more of a business than a fixed cost model like real estate. So that's the other thing is where like there's a very different operations standpoint. And what Klein did before I got there was they started their own management company and like built all these systems in house so that we're not trying to go out there and like get a property manager who will now manage an RV, which is way different. So that's kind of our moat in terms of the business model. Like you might be able to pool money to buy an RV park, but the management is much different. So we've been building that out really strategically. So it's a little bit different, but for the most part, you pay for them the same way, and the debt is similar. And in terms of like structuring, and you're still buying land. So from the structure and acquisition standpoint, there's a lot, and from the operation standpoint, we solved that by creating our own property management.
That's awesome. Have you or the team or whatever? I don't even know if this would work, but it just popped into my head. Have almost like an on-call maintenance guy specifically for RVs? Because then
we don't fix RVs. We don't own any RVs.
No, yeah, I know that you don't or anything, but like as part of the experience, like if somebody was like, oh my gosh, my RV's broken down, and you're like, I can call someone for you, not you, but the property manager.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't gotten that close to the management yet, but that's not a bad idea. The only thing I'll say is right now we are buying up and down the Sun Belt and the Gulf Coast. So our properties are not all really close to each other. So I don't know if we have the infrastructure to like have people on staff or close. But the thing about RVs is you don't go off and pack your life and your kids up into this vehicle and then travel 6, 8, 1,200 miles without having a fairly good sense of independence and like self-reliance and like ability to get yourself out of sticky situations and repairs and these kinds of things. So it's not like with the mobile homes where like something happens and they're like, oh, well, we can't afford to fix it and we don't know how to fix it. And like now we're on your property. And so you get in this weird quagmire. They're like, oh yeah, I drove all this time. Like I know this happens. We know how to deal with this. So there's a lot of self-reliance in the RV industry that we, again, lends itself to, it's a similar profit model, but you have far less liability in terms of.
Yeah, no, that makes sense actually, right? Because I'm not about to go backpacking without a backpack. And
well, if you go backpacking and you've done it before, you're like, well, let me take a bottle of water, or let me take maybe some first aid, or like I know how to like, I know how to get myself out of a sticky situation. Hopefully, maybe if you've done it a bunch, right? Take my carabiners and my knife and cell phone and
yeah.
Let me hope for the best. Yeah. Right? You take a buddy, or some people that are serious about it, they take GPSs and you take precautionary measures. So if you're driving across country, when I was a kid before Google Maps, right? I would drive from Tampa to Fort Bragg with no map. I just knew, right? Remember when our memories were good before the internet?
Yeah.
But nowadays, even nowadays, I'd be like, okay, let me make sure I'd be a lot more prepared because I'm wiser now, right? So it's like, dude, is your spare tire ready? Like, where are all the exits? Like, have your cell phone, have backups, have batteries, have all this extra stuff because you don't want to get stuck because life is crazy. Stuff happens,
Yeah, agree. So speaking of all the extra RVs that are out there that have been purchased in 2021, I can imagine RV storage is also huge. Are you guys dabbling into that at all?
We're working on it.
Yeah. I like it.
So there's a third party company that we actually just recently spoke to. I met him at Best Ever.
Nice.
And he has this third party storage company where people like go up and it's like an Airbnb for RV storage. And so what we would do is we would make a little spot on our parks that we would load up on that software. And so if people need to store, they can come to our place and store it, and it all goes through them. So we haven't done that yet, but there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of opportunity for this kind of stuff. The RV parks that we're looking for all have expansion of land. So it's more pads, right? We're doing things like, we're going to get through this. We linked up with this manufacturing company that's pumping us out little tiny homes on wheels. And we put the tiny homes on the RV park, and then we rent them out as Airbnb. And then because they're on wheels, we get the bonus depreciation in year one.
That's sweet.
100%. So there's all sorts of like additional value add stuff. RV storage is one that we've looked at, but have not done yet.
Yeah, that's cool.
I love it.
right? It can go like so many different ways. Now my brain's ticking like,
And because we try to own near destination and we try to own near highways. So, the hope is, again, if you look at it from the long play, the hope is these are all like in paths of progress and where people are traveling to.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I love that. Are you guys, just one more quick question about RV parks. Are you guys just looking for raw land at all to then build your own RV park? Or are you just looking at taking over operations, more like buying existing RV parks?
yeah. So most of the RV parks that we come across are owned by people who, either, I can't say what they wanted the parks for. I'd be out of my depth, but they're mom and pop places that own one or two. Because of our property management side, and we've been able to learn how to scale this operation, that gives us an efficiency of management value add that small, just like, apartments are, right? It's like some guy who's working this 24, 30 unit and he's out of his depth, or even, a husband and wife that are running a 50 unit. It's like they're doing it, but also they just don't have the systems and processes to do it at scale. So for us, we see a lot of opportunity to come into existing businesses and be like, you're not even, these places aren't even on the internet. They're still doing cash payments. So there's just a lot of stuff we can go in. Yeah. We can just go in there and say, we don't have to build new. There's a lot of opportunity in buying places that have management value add.
Yeah.
And then we, obviously, if they have room to expand, we do our amenities value add and we compress that cap rate. So right now, I think we're getting our feet wet with like, hey, we bought a 100 pad place with an opportunity to expand to 160. And that's kind of our development, our foot in the water. So, because you're in a whole other skill set now, and especially if you're buying them in different parts of the country where now you need contractors. I think that's on the horizon, but not yet.
That's cool.
Well, Alex, we're moving towards the end of the show, but thank you so much for chatting so far. We talked about like making impact with new investors through your website, Brokers of Choice, and then just chatting with people whenever you want, if they sign up, for a calendar, which is cool. And then we also talked about like overcoming fear, right? And making an impact and how to, how those people, your mentors, right, kind of brought you out of that fear, and just surrounding yourself with those people that are doing the things you want to do will help you overcome those fears that you have. And also then we chatted about the tsunami of RVs that are on the roads in America, driving around and looking for parks to park, and also maybe some possible storage. So, but before we end the show, Alex, we want to move into our adventures 4. These are 4 exploratory questions we ask all of our guests. The first question we have for you, Alex, is where is one place you wish to travel to and why?
I want to go to Istanbul. Have wanted to go for a while. I'm a history junkie, and Istanbul, Constantinople, was where basically Christianity was a pagan outlawed religion for 300 years. And Constantine made it legal on his deathbed and made it the religion of the region of the Mediterranean at the time. And it's got a tremendous history. So I really want to go there and see it all.
That's really cool.
It is. I like that. Second question is, what is something on your bucket list, and how are you leveraging real estate investing to achieve?
Bucket list. I have a thing. Real estate funds all of my passion projects, right? It's a passive income for the most part. I mean, I like making other people money, but some of my bucket list things are, I really want to, so I do photography, as you guys know, and the real estate allows me to travel a lot with my camera. And so that turned into, I have this daydream, this bucket list item where I want to follow around like a high level politician and shoot photography for like a political campaign.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. That'd be really awesome.
It's probably never going to happen, but I've shot a couple of, no, I said probably, but I just recently did a little local city council member, and that went well. So I'm like, okay, we're getting started here.
Cool.
Yeah.
When Dave Perea runs for mayor of Springfield, then.
So the other thing is, what's interesting about hanging out with people who are ambitious is, when I started, I was in my late 20s. Now I'm in my late 30s. I know I don't look at it. In 20 years, some of these people are going to run for office.
Yeah.
Really. Really, really. And like some of them are already talking about it. Dave, maybe he'll lose, but I'll still go take some pictures. My buddy Russell Brazil is in DC, and he's kind of working his way into that. And I'm the only photographer they know. So there's definitely some possibilities. I need to cut. It's just like everything else in the world. If you say it out loud to the world and you plant that seed, then when somebody goes, I want to run for office and I need a photographer or somebody to help me with media, and I'm not that I don't need to be the best. You just need to be the one that they make that connection. Yeah. Like that's Alex does that. Yeah.
I love that.
I do too. That's cool. So the third Wait.
Third question.
Oh yeah, sorry, he asked that.
We haven't done this before. What is one piece of advice you have for someone who wants to start passively investing in real estate?
So I'm thankful that I built my business with the idea that I want to be passive right from the start. In a different life, if I had started with more capital, like I just started with effort, but not capital. So I had to do all the labor, which makes it not so passive.
Yeah.
But I hired property managers right from the start. I never ran anything. The idea was I'll do the acquisitions, but I don't want to run anything because that becomes the job. And so now that I'm a little bit wiser and I've been in real estate longer, if I had more resources, more capital resources than time, I would only invest as LP in syndications and make it really, really passive.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if you want to invest passively, I'll say one is patience. Depending on what resources you have, it might take, like building a business might go faster, but it's also a lot more work and a lot more risk. Passive investments are usually safer, but they take time. So be patient. And then second, start with passivity in mind. If you actually want to be a passive investor, don't go build a business and then try to make it passive later. Like build it passive from the start.
Love that.
Me too. So then the fourth and final question is, if you had unlimited resources available to you, how would you leave an impact?
I'm of the opinion that the number one in demand product in American culture right now is community, and people don't know it. And they are suffering from loneliness and emptiness and lack of, they feel like strangers in our own culture. And so I think, and it's something I want to work on, or I'm slowly working on, but I think if I had unlimited resources, I would do some sort of like a WeWork, like a co-working space, but not for entrepreneurs, for like people who are just looking for like good community members for them. And I'm not exactly sure how you find the right people for the right people to say it like that, but building communities, I think that's a really in demand. It's not in demand, but it's definitely needed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially after the last 2 years. Yeah.
Especially after the last 2 years, but it's been growing for about 25 years, this problem.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is happening in the States, but it was cool. Like more of them are popping up here, right? Where like I don't want to say like a co-housing because it's not like people are sharing their house, right? But all the doors face each other. And then in between, like you can grow a garden together. There's like lots of shared space. There's like a whole clubhouse where you can cook meals together and events are held. And like specifically though, where the people are working and doing stuff together. I think that's really cool. Like the first time we went to that, I was like, well, this is neat. Like, this is fun.
I had no idea they existed. Like there was a place we went to for dinner or whatever. And all these people were like talking about how they all live together and they help each other do things. Like there's one guy who's really good at something or one lady who's really good at something, whatever. And then they'll cook meals together and help each other out. It's just like, I didn't know like communities like that actually existed. And I think they need to be more known.
Communes.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Communes.
Yeah. It's a commune. Yeah. It's a commune.
It's a commune. Yeah. So it's a really interesting, and I spend a lot of time on like history and philosophy and like this human, the human experience. And it's so interesting how our culture, what we value or what we think we value and like what we actually get fulfillment out of. The problem is fulfillment doesn't show on a balance sheet. So you can't sell it. So American culture doesn't know how to they don't know how to sell it to people. So they sell things like, here's everybody should get a mortgage. And then you end up, everybody lives alone. And then we're like, oh, we don't know why we feel lonely. And I'm like, everybody lives alone in the big house by themselves, It's
right. Like you pull into your garage where you don't have to speak to anyone when you get out of your car.
Yeah, communes don't make as much money. So like American culture, not on purpose, it just doesn't know how to facilitate that. We'll get better at it. I had this daydream about 15 years ago, but before I even started real estate, I was like, or maybe 10, right as I started real estate, I was like, the malls are all going to go to business, right? We know that the malls are going to go away and it's gonna be a lot of real estate. And I was like, dude, we should put little tiny homes in the malls, hundreds of them. And then we'll make it a self-contained community with like a grocery store and, a barbershop and a little school and a library and a hangout spot and a gym. And you can make these all self-contained. And I've been daydreaming about this for 10 years. I don't know how to do it. And I still don't have like the capital to like take that big risk, but that is a huge opportunity. And it's kind of that same thing, like that same kind of idea.
That would be really cool. I never thought about that. It's just like living in a mall.
Yeah.
They're not going to know what to do with them. It's a ton of real estate. They have no idea. They're going out of business left and right. It's a weird thing. And there's a crisis of housing and there's a crisis of community. I'm like, this is I don't know why somebody's going to do it. And then I'm not going to make any money, but that's a good idea. Somebody should tackle that.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
We're down.
I like it.
Yeah. Love it. Awesome, Alex. So thanks you so much. Before we end the show, would you mind sharing with our adventurous family where they can find out more about you?
Yeah. BrokeisAchoice.com. It's a lot of Alex there, but it's a lot of story, I share book content too. I love books. But yeah, brokerschoice.com. You can find everything else about me from there.
Cool. Well, Alex, thank you for joining us today. It is always a pleasure, and we cannot wait until we get to see you again.
Thank you. This was fantastic. I love hanging out with you guys. You're the best. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very cool episode. I'm really excited to share with our listeners. So until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.
Woo!